All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Fresh Files. This is our first episode of 2026, and we are really excited to be here. We're going to be talking all about Octopath Traveler Zero today, and we have a fantastic special guest with us, Alta Biscuit, who is just a total Octopath Traveler fanatic, in addition to being a fantastic speedrunner and just generally awesome person across the board. But we'll get going on that in just a minute. I do want to welcome everybody back. Like I said, we took a few months off for the holidays, and we're kind of reloaded, ready to go for 2026. I am moonblazewolf. I'm kind of one of your main hosts for this show. You can call me Blaze, and I'm joined by Kios, who is our other recurring host here for Fresh Files. Kios, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It is cold and windy, so I will apologize in advance if anyone hears any loud banging and crashing, but otherwise pretty good. Super excited to be back. I know no, we definitely took a break for the holidays and everything else that went on. Definitely excited to get into today's episode.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really excited. And we're going to be doing this monthly, or at least trying to do this monthly in 2026. We have, if you haven't already noticed what day it is Saturday. We are going to be trying to record on Saturdays because the wonderful tech team for the RPG Limit Break content team has expanded and offered some additional time. So we have the Sid who is producing for us today. Thank you, Sid, for being here and helping us put the show on for everybody. For those of you who haven't caught an episode of the Fresh Files podcast before, our mission here, it's a little different. You're on RPG Limit Break. It's a speedrunning channel. What the heck is this? What have I tuned into? Well, we have kind of figured out and decided, RPG fans are just a pretty fun bunch. We're a pretty tight knit, excited community. We love the games. We're very passionate about them. And so this is something a little bit different than maybe the typical RPG Limit Break content that you're used to. The mission of the Fresh Files podcast is we want to bring you a timely discussion of new RPGs, and mainly from a casual perspective. We will talk about speedrunning. We'll talk about, we're going to talk about some Octopath Traveler speedrunning stuff today. But we're mainly going to be talking about these games from a casual perspective because we want to share the hype and excitement and the love for some of the fun, exciting new games that are coming out all the time. It just seems like they never stop. Why the video games just never stop these days. But we're also going to aim to keep the conversations light and relatively spoiler free. So, for example, like me, if you haven't played more than a couple hours of Octopath Traveler Zero, don't worry, we're not going to spoil anything for you. We're just going to talk about the game, like what works, maybe what is controversial or what doesn't work, or different things like that. And we're going to try to also bring the community into the conversation a little bit more this year too. So we opened up a thread in the RPG Limit Break Discord leading up to this episode. We kind of asked the community for their thoughts on Octopath Traveler Zero as well, and we got some of that to share throughout our discussion today too. So we're really excited to be back. We've got some other fun stuff planned for today. If you want to check this out later on, or if you just want to know where to get new episodes of the show when they come out, you can always catch the YouTube VODs. That is probably, if you want the video version of the show, that is going to be the best place to find it. So look up RPG Limit Break on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe so that you can get all of the new videos, including this one. Specifically for podcast platforms, we are on Apple Music and Spotify. Just go ahead and search for RPGLB, not Limit Break. You will not find the show. Believe me, I've tried. But if you do RPGLB, all one phrase, you will find us. Make sure that you subscribe so that you get the new episodes there on Apple Music and Spotify. All right. So Kios and I already said hi. We have a third person with us. I already gave a brief overview of who they are. Alta Biscuit, please tell us about yourself and welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for the very warm welcome here. Yeah, so I'm Alt Biscuit. I don't know if super fan of Octopath is a good way to put it, but it's I really love these games and have done a number of speed runs and even done a GDQ run for it before. So I'm excited to talk about this game because I really liked it a lot, but I could already see it's going to be a little bit of a divisive game amongst fans, so it'll lead to some interesting discussion points.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. And this one, I would say, caught me a little bit off guard when they announced it, and just like the really quick, relatively speaking, development of this game was kind of fun to watch. So I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to share, and a lot of it's really positive too. It seems like a lot of people really like this game so far. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Before we get into that main discussion, I have a couple really important announcements related to the RPG Limit Break community that I want to make sure I share with everybody. The most important one is if you are a speedrunner and you want to submit to the RPG Limit Break Marathon, which is happening May 17th through the 23rd in Denver, Colorado. Game submissions are open right now, and they are only open for another 8 days through February 15th. So get those submissions in. I did. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to definitely be there this year. And I hope everybody that wants to be a part of the event can get those submissions in. I'm sorry about that. I am getting over a little bit of a cold, so I apologize if I need to take a little bit of a breather here and there. Kios, we had a really exciting event on the
We
RPG
did.
Limit Break channel last week. You were staff for that event. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, we had Questing for Glory, which is non-charity. However, it is an online speedrunning marathon. Again, some of you here helped out with it, with restreaming, volunteering, running. I know it's not technically like RPG Limit Break Light or pre-Limit Break, but it is a really cool speedrun marathon that we've been putting on for a while now, a couple of years. But keep an eye out for that when it comes back around. We have a traditional games community, or like a game committee. But if you have something that you think is a little bit maybe long, or maybe like you're still kind of workshopping the run, definitely feel free to submit. We had a really, really, really cool lineup. Everything ranging from the Questing for Glory series to fairly modern titles. We had Scarlet Nexus. We had a bunch of stuff. It was a really good time. But yeah, definitely check that out if you ever see it come across your radar, and use it for showing off what you have, or if you like this, feel like you want to maybe try what it's like to restream or produce, feel free to join us.
Yeah, it's a great event, and I just love how casual it is.
Mhm.
For some of these games that are just can be a little bit daunting as speedruns, or might be hard to get it into even like a main RPG Limit Break event. Although definitely submit
Mhm.
them to the main RPG Limit Break event if you're interested in participating. But yeah, I've gotten to run some really fun games in that event over the years. I ran a pretty traditional Final Fantasy Tactics remaster this time, which was super fun to be able to show that off. But yeah, there's always some really cool games and some hidden gems in that event, and it's just it's got such a good vibe as such a casual event, and I love that is something that we do here at RPG Limit Break. So Kios, thank you for all of the hard work that you put into
Yeah.
that event.
Hey, thanks for submitting.
Oh yeah, always. And then we have our RPG Limit Break side quest series for those who are looking for more speedrun content. That is going to be every Sunday. Like I said, most of our recordings are going to be on Saturdays now for this podcast. But Sundays, you can still check out the side quest series, Random Encounters. Tomorrow is going to be East 4, Dawn of East by Dented Razor, who's a good friend of mine. That is going to be at noon. I hope that is correct. Yes, I'm getting the nod. Yes, that is the correct episode. Suddenly, I saw the look on. I can see the Sid, and I saw the look on Sid's face, and I was like, "Oh no, did I look at the wrong month when I was pulling tomorrow's episode?" But sure enough, it is going to be East 4 by Dented Razor. So check that out. That'll be a really good run. I know Dented has been working super, super hard on that. So, and then last but not least, I do want to give a quick plug for the RPG Limit Break merch store. Store.rpglimitbreak.com. Get yourself some awesome community gear, clothes, and all that other fun stuff. Oh, that's why I got the weird look. Stoltenheim is doing a run of East versus Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga, which I did not know was a thing, but that sounds awesome. And I love
Hmm.
a good Stoltenheim run.
Yeah.
Just a lot of fun to watch watch their speed run. So that'll be great. So check that out tomorrow at noon Eastern here on the RPG Limit Break channel.
Mini
All right,
segue,
let's
but I
get.
believe
Oh, go ahead.
um I'm so sorry. I believe actually almost the entirety of the East games are on sale. I forget where, but if you've been looking to pick them up, it's like we're
Ooh.
talking like under $10 a piece kind of deal. So keep your eye out. It's a cool series.
And I will mention as well, as we're getting into our discussion of Octopath Traveler Zero, I found out last night the entire Octopath series is currently on sale, including I think Octopath 2 is like 60% off or something absurd like that. So even the game we were about to talk about, I was looking on the Switch 2 Nintendo eShop, it was 20% off. So yeah, if you want to pick up, there's a lot of good sales, a lot of good discounts on video games right now. So definitely consider checking that out. But yeah, let us segue into our discussion of Octopath Traveler Zero. And I mean, I guess the first thing we need to talk about with this game is it is a port of a mobile game that was developed, wasn't expected to be a mainline Octopath game at all, called Champions of the Continent. And it sort of morphed into the third game in the Octopath series. So Alta, like, kind of take us through that and sort of what you saw as someone who's kind of like a fan of the series and a member of the community.
Yeah, so I'll just start off by saying that I never played Champions of the Continent before. It came out, I want to say, about year, 2 years after the first game in Japan only, and it didn't get the global release until about 3 years later to not much fanfare. So if you've never heard of it before or never played it, you're not alone. That's a lot of people. And at least for me, when I first saw the release, completely took me by surprise because they in that direct they started with Adventures of Elliot, which looked like Octopath, and then it's like, oh, we got baited, and then the next announcement was Octopath Zero. Oh, so I'm losing my mind. But when it was revealed it was to be, based off the mobile game, everybody kind of like all my friends and a lot of people that I know kind of paused after that because they weren't quite sure what to expect from that kind of thing. But I would say that it did a pretty good job of bringing it over, especially now that I know a lot of what changed and everything. But the they had to do a number of changes, and they reveal this in the opening trailer, so I don't really consider this to be a spoiler. But the whole Wish Fail arc, which they added specifically for Zero, was made to kind of tie all the stories from Champions of the Continent together. And how the game would start normally for Champions is that you'd boot up the game, you'd gotcha roll one of 8 characters, and then you'd pick which villain story you want to start with, and then you just go from there. Um, they added the whole Wishvale arc and a silent protagonist to more or less tie together those stories, is instead of having to do the gotcha roll thing. And I know that some people kind of roll their eyes about the whole silent protagonist and chosen one kind of thing, is it's a trope we've seen in a number of JRPGs. But I think it does what it needs to do in tying everything together and giving your character a motivation to exist in the world at all. So in
Hmm.
the in the trailer, they reveal, Wishvale gets sacked by the 3 villains at the start of the game, and a lot of the way Wishvale moves along there is, dealing with the loss and the difficult job of rebuilding everything after that. And so,
Yeah.
it I think it does a good job of doing what it needs to do. Um, I'm there just to get everything tied together. Um, almost inevitably, though, I guess we can jump into how it compares to the first two games, since
Yeah.
at least I wasn't alone in being a little worried about this game at first because I didn't know what to expect, and a lot of my friends didn't buy the game initially, so I was in
Mhm.
this rare position where I was the only one who bought the game, and I finished it first. I'm usually pretty slow at finishing games
Mhm.
casually, so I'm sitting here
Hmm.
patiently waiting for my friends to finish playing it,
Okay.
and so I can
Yeah, I mean,
gush
this
about
it's
it.
been out
But
for a few months now, so because I watched that same Nintendo Direct that you were talking about, and because I remember seeing the Adventures of Elliot trailer, and then they kind of jumped to this, and it was like, this is going to be out in I mean, it was like a couple months, like it was so soon, and I
Yeah.
was like, wait a minute,
mhm.
you've been making a whole Octopath, like you've what have you been doing in there? They
Yeah.
made an entire Octopath, kind of, except it's I think kind of what you were talking about. There was some nervousness and some trepidation about like, okay, well, what is this actually going to be? Because we know the source material, and this is kind of like a short runway. Like, what are you actually serving to us? Um, and I've played a few hours of the game at this point. It feels very cozy. Like it's really got those vibes from the first couple games. The systems are similar. There's some tweaks there. We'll probably talk about that as we're going through, but like it definitely felt like Octopath kind of right out of the gate in a good way. So, Kios,
Mhm.
have what is your kind of take on, how this game came out?
I feel like we use the term like shadow drop on like a lot of things, and like I don't want to necessarily call like how this was revealed a shadow drop, but it was very kind of like you mentioned, it was kind of like almost sudden. It was like,
It felt like that almost,
yeah,
yeah.
you could tell like they weren't and this isn't a negative thing because like sometimes it happens, but like they had something, they just didn't know what it was. And I know like that's something we'll talk about later on in the show, about like the very interesting pipeline of gotcha mobile live service kind of games. And I think maybe like Alta said, they kind of pivoted. But no, I think it's neat. If anything, I can be consistent on the fact that I love experimentation, um even within a franchise. Maybe innovation, iteration. I think it kind of keeps things fresh, mixing up how you go about things. Um,
Mhm.
and I will say Nishiki, was it Ishiki Nasanori, I think, is the composer. Like, I think just keeping him around really lends to that cozy vibe that like the Octopath games are known for. Like, if you can keep
Mhm.
like the similar graphics, the somewhat similar gameplay mechanics in terms of combat, and that familiar kind of composition in the music, like I have no qualms with it. I'll be honest. I think it's great. Try something new.
Yeah, so that's kind of maybe a good segue, Alta, to throw it back to you. So, like, what were some of the things, there's some very obvious things, but what were some of the other differences that you noticed between the first two games and Zero?
Um, yeah. First, I'll just say I agree. It definitely feels like an Octopath game. Like that nervousness kind of melted away after the first hour of playing it. But, as far as the differences go, the most obvious difference is there's a lot more travelers in the game. Instead of just 8 of them, there's over 30. And
Mhm.
the storytelling structure is different because of that, because 1 and 2, they have a pretty in-depth story for each of the 8 travelers, but they're not going to be able to do that for 30 plus of them, and at least not have a game that isn't like 500 hours. Um but so the main difference is in the narrative structure on how the game works, and we can dive more into this later on as one of the talking points. But the short version of it is that there's a lot more focus on the villain stories in the main narrative compared to the individual traveler stories, with exception to the Wishvale arc. Those characters are a bit more fleshed out than the other ones that you pick up along the way. And I actually really liked the Wishvale arc myself. So it was probably one of my favorite parts about the game, honestly.
Yeah, and it's like it was a really good kind of like classic RPG opening too. Aside from just kind of the general cozy Octopath vibes, but like you said earlier, your village gets burned to the ground and you have to rebuild it.
Yeah,
Doesn't
and
get much more classic RPG than that, right?
yeah, and a lot of the themes in the story are about loss and rebuilding, which is a pretty big shift compared to the other two games. And it's felt in the game's main theme, in my opinion. And 1 and 2, their main themes are pretty similar, and it's giving you this feeling that you're about to go on this grand adventure or here, but Zero's main theme is a lot more somber and melancholy from the
Hmm.
get-go. So, and it builds up into this, reserved hope that you got to push forward against the darkness, and it's a it's definitely felt in the shift in tone for the story overall. Also, without getting into too much, I think this game might have been rated mature if it wasn't pixel art.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Well, and I
definitely
think
big shift in tone.
yeah, and the villains are really good right out of the gate. You get to meet the first three villains, and they're really good classic RPG villains. Like they definitely get that across right away. And then, like you said, you kind of find out like that's your sort of progression structure is you're following like the paths to the three villains, and it kind of gets into it, pretty quickly. I think we'll talk about this a little later on, but like the town building was
Yeah.
also a new thing, and they really kind of emphasized that pretty early on, and obviously it fits into the Wishvale arc that we're talking about, where the village was burned down, and now you have to rebuild it, and you have to create a home and a community for all of these characters that you're meeting, and it's just a nice. It felt like a really nice series of choices, kind of with the expanded cast, some of the other things that they did. It really kind of the village itself, the Wishvale experience, I guess you might say. It does sort of feel like it kind of ties everything together really nicely.
Yeah, I'm usually not too big into town builders myself, but I do appreciate as a narrative device what it was doing, and I think it looks like it offers enough for people to really pretty up their village if they want to. And I haven't played this game, but it's pretty similar to Bravely Default 2's town building from what others have said, and that makes sense because they're the same development house. But
Yeah.
so
Hmm. What do you
I'm a
think about
sucker
this
for
game as
town
like a
building.
jumping in point for the series? Do you think this is a good one to start with, or would you maybe recommend one of the earlier ones?
I would recommend starting with 1 or 2 to start with. One of the main reasons for that is 0 is a prequel to 1 story-wise,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
I'd say for the first half of the game, I would have said, "Oh, you don't really need to have played 1," but in the second half, it definitely serves to enhance the story if you have played most of 1. And
Mm.
they're 1 and 0 are both on Orstera, so the same continent, and there's a lot of small nods to 1 on and just throughout the world, and then a lot of big story nods, especially in the second half of there. Um, it's also probably the most complex of the battle systems between the three games. So
Mm.
I think it helps to have played 1 or 2 to kind of ease into what 0 is doing in there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can, that's a good opportunity to kind of jump into talking about the combat system and how it's, updated and changed a little bit. Um, they expanded kind of along with the cast, they kind of expanded the battle system in a lot of ways. And they also kind of simplified the characters and some of the other aspects of it, it seems like, as well. So, what were your takes on like the system as a whole and some of the changes that they made?
Once I got a full party of 8 is when I think the battle system really started coming into its own. 'Cause, probably for the first few hours, you're still getting a bunch of your party members, so you don't really get to feel what it has to offer, but, you got 4 in the front row and 4 in the back row, and you can swap between them, and it adds a lot of depth to the combat system, and the bosses are definitely keeping that in mind with their shield counts being much higher in this game because you have double the characters. But it just allows you to, who do you keep in your back rows? Like, do you keep your damage dealers back there to keep them relatively safe while your front row sets them up? What do you do with your healers, your shield breakers? There's your debuffers. Just there's a whole lot of different things to consider with that too. And one of the things they had to change with this was the job system, as you mentioned there. And 1 and 2, every one of your 4 party members can have a sub job to give them more abilities, but um, there isn't any of that. Instead, they have something called skill masteries. So this allows you to teach other characters skills that they don't learn naturally. And this was kind of their solution to that. The protagonist, you can change the job to whatever you need, just by spending job points there. But once you have taught every skill, you can master skills. So, and this is another way to gain skill masteries and let people learn other skills this way. But every character also has their own exclusive skills that you can't master. So, what's a good example? Um, yeah, I had something for this, but anyway,
No
every
worries.
character's got their own exclusive skills that they can't teach to other people. So that's just a way to keep them all unique in some way or another. And so you'll pick up like 4 merchants along the way as an example, and they'll all have different skills that they can't overlap on. And every character's also got an ultimate ability also, which kind of replaces the latent powers from Octopath 2, and it charges up
Mm.
over time, and it just does really strong effects. It might be too good for some of the characters in particular, but
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
don't
one of the comments, we were talking about this in the RPG Limit Break Discord, and one of the comments from Bramhall the Fifth was just ultimate gauges are broken.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, some of them in particular, I'm not gonna say who this character is because it's a massive
mhm.
spoiler, but, like, one of them, has just their ultimate ability just essentially nukes everything, and, um, but, e so that is one of the things that I have seen about it is that Octopath Zero is on the easier side compared to 1 and 2, and I would
Mm,
generally agree, but having seen a lot of comments online also, most of the people that I'm seeing make these comments are very experienced with the game. And so
mhm.
we all know how to break the systems. So it was, I guess a better way to put it is, it was easier to break it this time around, compared to
Ah, I
previous
see.
games. And it's
Okay.
because I still see comments online on people struggling with some parts of the game that may not be as in tune with the mechanics. It's
Yeah. Kios, what's your like I'm kind of curious, what's your take on the Octopath combat system generally speaking with the breaking and the vulnerabilities? Cuz I have opinions on that, but I want to hear what you think first.
I I think it's pretty interesting. I like it as a mechanic. It keeps things fresh. Um, but I absolutely will agree with Alta. I feel like one is definitely the best starting point um, for the franchise, and I think it's honestly just to understand the combat system at its core. I feel like jumping into zero is going to be a little bit rough. And even Octopath 2, I think like the latent power stuff, some of it's really useful and incredibly broken, and for others it's I mean that's a cool latent power, I guess. It doesn't really do anything in this particular circumstance. So yeah, it could be a little bit of tuning. um but I think it's very neat. Especially some of the mechanics they added to like the break mechanics in 2, um kind of helping keep it fresh. um but it's very interesting. It adds a little kind of a like a custom touch to your standard turn-based combat, and I like that. Some people are like purists. This is my turn, this is what I do. you know but having like an incentive to mix up your party, especially with the way the job system works in Octopath as a whole, just trying to figure out like what you can get away with, what is your optimal pairing. I like it.
Hmm.
It kind of almost tiptoes that line between like a strategy game, but not full on diving into it. So I'm a fan of it. Like I said, I played through 1. I am on like the back half end game of 2, and I've
Hmm.
poked around just a wee bit in 0, but I like it.
Yeah.
I like how they continue to advance on it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's all really valid. I'm going to share my one, and this is like a personal thing. So I don't want, I'm going to probably sound like a total, like, you know, uh, person who has not thought too hard or too deeply about Octopath, combat in general. But it's not just this game. Um, I find the hidden vulnerability systems to be very frustrating in these kinds of games because I feel like I have to do a dry run of like a big boss fight or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I almost have to do a dry run of the fight to figure out what the vulnerabilities are so that I can actually go back and do it correctly, or like I can go back and actually beat it and not just sort of feel like I'm flailing for the first, few rounds of the fight. So I guess like that is something I've always struggled with a little bit with this games or this series in particular. It is not unique to this series. There are definitely other games that have like a similar
Yeah.
mechanic, but I just don't like feeling like I'm kind of at a disadvantage at the beginning of fights for that reason. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
That's my
that's
opinion
fair.
on that aspect of it. And it's the one thing that just kind of like it just doesn't feel good to me when I play the game in particular. But I like almost everything else about Octopath other than a couple of those parts of the combat system. So
I think that's fair because like I've been seeing a friend of mine play through Octopath 1 recently, and the first attempt at some of the harder fights in the game are almost inevitably a test run.
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, it's just
I
I
just have Oswald multicast analyze.
there you go. Yeah, that's well, that's what I'm wondering. I was like, is that what everybody does? Like to not feel like, frustrated by that or, and it's fine. Like I assume people also will just play the game with like a guide or something like that too, and that serves the same purpose. So maybe that's the route I need to go to not, feel frustrated by that dynamic of the combat system. So
I know there's mods you can install that reveal all the weaknesses, so that may be
mhm.
something you want to look into if you want to smooth it out a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's such a I love how fast the combat is too. Like there's just a really
Hmm.
good like pace. Like it feels really good when you're doing it well, right? Like that is it's a
Yeah.
good feeling. So like, yeah, I
It's
broke
not
that boss.
sloggy.
Like, let's take it to him. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and it does have that strategic element to it as well because of the break system, and I have always really enjoyed that aspect of it too. And gosh, just the like the way they draw the characters, like
Oh, some of the
there was
character
another
art
comment in the
is
Discord about like
absurd.
best boss sprites in the series for Zero specifically, and it's just like, God, this game is so pretty.
I would agree with that. Like especially the boss animations too. It was like one didn't really have much for animations, but two ratcheted that up, and zero especially. There's so many good boss animations for attacks and stuff. It really just adds to the experience.
Hmm.
Yeah, even
Yeah,
some of
I'm
the
definitely looking
simple
forward to.
stuff.
Oh, go ahead, Keo. Sorry.
I was gonna say like I don't know why, but like I can see every frame of it in my mind. But from Octopath to the dancer's lion kick skill, I don't know what it is. I just find it so amusing. It's just a short, especially like when you're on full charge and it zooms in from the back and your character just boop, little spin kick. Like just little touches like that add so much character to a game.
I'm trying to remember. When I was playing, there was already like a really good attack name that an enemy used on me, and I was like, "Oh, this game is so funny." I forgot about just how like clever and charming
Mhm.
it is with just the little touches, little details, things like that. It's just yeah, whether it's animations or the little quips that the characters make. Like I know there's so many like famous ones at this point, but it's just like
Mhm.
it's always just it's just oozing with personality. It's so charming.
It's something I've always appreciated about the series is like how intentional every detail is in the game, and whether how even down to the really subtle things.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's true. It really is just it's kind of in a class on its all on its own still, and I don't think Zero does anything to take it down a peg. Would you agree, Alta? Like it's still like as a franchise, like it's still just really humming along.
Oh yeah, it still very much feels like an Octopath game just through and through. And like some of the differences we've pointed out already. It's like there's gonna be some changes here and there, but at its core, it still feels like an Octopath game.
Hmm. Kios, you mentioned the music earlier. That was another thing that just immediately struck me about like all of the vibe setting of the game.
It's a perfect setup. Like it really is. And I know that like it's probably what I talk about all the time, but it's just so impressive, and I think sometimes it's really a good thing to stick with a composer through a franchise. I mean, look at having Yoko Shimomura with Kingdom Hearts, um, Nobuo Uematsu with the first 9 or 10 or how many other Final Fantasies at this point. Shoji Meguro with the Persona franchise. It just I think I don't want to say same but different, but I think when you spend that much time working within a franchise and, obviously they're working with the artists and the storyboard people and getting the general feel, you start to develop the kind of textures and nuances that really keep the continuation of your story and your franchise together, and I just find it impressive. It's you'd figure for something that's more of like a pixel, quote unquote, pixel art game, um, that it would be a bit more on the simplistic side, but it's really not. I've looked through some of the sheet musics and covers and interpretations of it, and it's very well written, and I keep it coming. It's really good. I
Hmm.
get the Octopath 2 theme song stuck in my head to the point where my wife tells me to please stop whistling that. It really hurts.
And Nishiki
That's
really
awesome.
knows how to compose strings and piano, and that did not stop here in Zero. Which a lot of the music is from Champions of the Continent, obviously, but they reused some music from 1 and 2. And, for this being a lower price point game, I don't mind that. And it's also on the same continent as 1. So it's almost like you're returning home, um, in a way, in that regard. But there are some new compositions for Zero, which I would love to share, but the titles of the songs are literal spoilers. So just exercise some caution if you want to play this game and are looking at the soundtrack.
Yeah.
But
No, I think I think just to kind of summarize our feelings about Octopath Traveler 0, like it's another really solid entry in the series. Maybe not like the best place to jump in, but if you're somebody who's liked the first 2 games, well worth your time and not just like a weird mobile port gotcha not gotcha thing. Has a lot to offer.
yeah, I would
So
agree
I
with
wanted
that
to
wholeheartedly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to touch on one other thing because we are on the RPG Limit Break channel and we do have Alta here who has done some speedrunning of Octopath games in the past. So just kind of like as a high level summary for everybody who might be curious, Alta, like what's kind of like the current status of speedrunning for this franchise as a whole? And like, do you know anything about the Octopath Zero speedrun at this point to share with everybody?
Um, for Zero, I know some of the high points right now with it, but there's a 3% steal slash entry that's kind of mandatory near the beginning because it's just a really powerful weapon that you want to that snowballs out of control from there. So that's already like getting people. It's like, oh boy, here we go again. But uh, um, and it's a different vibe from the other two games speedrun wise. Is not only because it's a longer game and all that, but uh, probably unfortunately one of the ways you skip encounters or avoid encounters in the game is kind of uninteresting in my opinion. And you reload a cutscene over and over again. Like you can skip it, but it kind of breaks the flow of the run. And for me, so
Mm.
I'm kind of waiting. It's still pretty early in Zero's speedrun life, though, so there's still a lot to be discovered. And like the development of like Octopath 1, especially as a speedrun, what we were doing 6 years ago just sounds laughable now compared to what's done. But
Yeah.
speaking
There's
speaking of one and
so many more tools in the toolkit for Zero too, with all the characters and just you probably have so many options, I would think.
yeah, uh, Zero, you kind of beeline for the strongest characters and don't pick anybody else up. So
Mhm.
Uh, but that's kind of how the other two games work as well, as far as full game runs go. Um,
Mhm.
Mhm.
speaking of 1 and 2 as a speed run, I'd say that the routes for most of the categories are pretty stable at this point. Um, and it's a pretty approachable run to get into if you were ever wanting to get into RPG speedrunning, but maybe didn't want to commit to a longer game. Octopath has 1 and 2 has single story speedruns where you just do one character story, and those can be completed in under an hour pretty easily. A pretty generous autosaves, so just very approachable. And then there's longer
Mhm.
categories available for you too if you want to do that. Um, or if you want to mix things up, like anime fan did a solo character run at this last HDQ, in which the system is flexible enough that you can do that, which is just really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's always really neat when an Octopath game shows up in a marathon because there's usually some sort of like story bid war or just something like that. It really does, like you said, show off kind of the flexibility of the game as a speedrun game. And it's really neat that there's a lot of different ways that people can kind of get into the game as a speedrun too, or the series, I should say.
And Zero has kind of made me revisit the games as a speed run, and it's just kind of just made me appreciate a lot of the work the community's put into it, and like especially the full game run for Octopath 1. looks a hell of a lot different than when it did
Mhm.
when it was new on the Switch. They I think the funniest part about it is that Cyrus has that study foe thing that reveals a weakness at the start, but it wastes like 3-4 seconds every combat. So they just went out of their way to route him out of the run as much as possible. It's because it saved like 2 or 3 minutes overall.
Yep.
So now Ophelia
Yeah.
is the damage dealer in the full game run.
It's funny
It
how
is
that
a
stuff can change over time for, when you have a game as complex as these, and people really get time to sort of go through different iterations of routing and what works and what doesn't. It's always really fun to see how they develop over, a series of many years like this. So, and I'm sure that, 2 and 0, 0 is so fresh, brand new, but like, it'll keep happening. It always keeps happening with games like this. So cool to see. All right. Well, that was our main discussion of Octopath Traveler 0. That was a lot of fun, getting into that, and it's just a series that really deserves a lot of love and attention and means a lot to a lot of people, so I'm glad we got someone as knowledgeable and passionate as Alta here to help us, go through the newest entry today, so thank you again, for being here for that. We want to talk about some other new games, or new slash coming out soon games. Kios, you have an exciting new segment that you want to kick off for us.
I do actually, and I believe we've internally named it the Wishlist Watch. Um, if you're like me, you're a big old fan of uh, games. Obviously, we're here, we're talking about games, we like games. And I have found, boop, I can do that. I have found 3 games specifically that actually have demos out now that are coming out soon that you can play. Um, and I've actually played the demo for all 3 of these. So I would like to talk about Parasite Mutant, which is very, very heavily inspired by Parasite Eve, which is a game a lot of us have a very long history with. It's a more, I think, up to date, cyberpunk aesthetic, but it really felt like, what if Parasite Eve was coming out today? Um, I liked it. I enjoyed it. The demo is really cool. No release date yet, but check it out. There's a demo. You can play it. Indie games. The next one, really, really cool. I believe Radical Fish, these are the same people who made Crosscode, have a game out called Alabaster Dawn. No, it's coming out. Demo on this was really lengthy, but it feels great. The soundtrack's tremendous. The character design's interesting. Um, and the combat, very, like, I'm not a huge mana fan personally. I know that'll draw ire from certain people. Um, but the way the combat is implemented in this felt tremendous. It was very lively, very responsive. That's probably the word I'm going for. Um, but if you like Crosscode, if you like mana, definitely check it out. It's super cool. And the last one that I found is, again, really interesting. And we're going to kind of toe that line of, is it an RPG? Well, kind of. Lines in that survival horror. But we have Ground Zero, which kind of is like a weird survival horror meets Dino Crisis 2 kind of experience. Um, it was very interesting. I think the story premise is neat, and they also have like a kind of scoring system, like a point-based system as you play through the game, which you can then trade for things at a shop. So I think it'll definitely encourage a lot of very interesting playthroughs and speedruns. So I'm definitely taking a look at that. Again,
Oh, I
demo
see
available
I
for
see a
all
big
3 of those.
I see a big stompy boy there at the end of the trailer. Sorry,
Oh
I got
yeah.
a little excited.
Oh no, it's totally cool. But these all have demos out for free on Steam. Check them out. MBW, Alta, you got your eyes on anything super cool coming out? Maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I just want to quickly say, like, before I move on to mine that I want to talk about, like, we need more like survival horror RPGs or just like
There's so
sci-fi,
many right
like
now. They're
heavy
coming.
sci-fi RPGs. So yeah, whenever like anybody, whenever I hear Parasite Eve inspired, I'm just like immediately interested in whatever that game is. That I love Parasite Eve. I think it has its flaws, but I appreciate the fact that they were trying to do something new and different, and we need more games like that. And thank goodness there's a lot of great indie devs out there who are willing and able to step up to the plate. So I'm definitely going to check that one out in particular. But yeah, the game I wanted to bring to everybody's attention actually came out already. I'm sure there is a demo for it, but it is a Paper Mario like called Escape from Ever After, and it is so good. I played about the first probably 8 hours or so of the game at the moment. It's got the kind of like paired up combat system, swapping between the characters. Uh, you know, um, timed hits on attacks and blocks, and it takes place in this world where you are a storybook character and you've been bought out by a big corporation, and in order to sort of take them out from the inside, you become an employee and they start sending you on missions to take over other fairy tale character worlds and things like that. It's just got such a great premise. It's so funny. As someone who has worked in corporate life, unfortunately, for the better part of my adult life, it is just like hitting a little too close to home, like way, way too often in a way that is just like it's so, so good and memorable. And just like really charming. So if you've ever done any kind of like fractured fairy tales, there haven't been a lot of video games with fractured fairy tales, but there's certainly been a lot of like books and movies and other media that have that kind of vibe going with them. But basically all of the characters that you love from fairy tales and things like that kind of put in a weird premise in an awkward situation, and you're kind of like unlearning and relearning what you know about them. So it's just really, really charming, definitely worth checking out. I think it's a $20, if it's not still on its introductory sale right now. I believe it's a $20 game. It's out on PC and all of the consoles, I believe. And yeah, highly, highly recommend. Have not finished it yet, but it has been a blast so far. And that is Escape from Ever After. So I'll give my thumbs up to that one.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Escape from Ever After. That's on my that's been on my list too. There.
I'm definitely going to be interested in seeing if there's a speed run there, because I don't know if there's anything broken that people have found, but it's not a super long game, I don't think. So it might be one that you can kind of condense down into a speed run, but we'll see
Hmm.
on that. I'm always kind of keeping an eye out for stuff like that too. And I know you wanted to bring up a new demo that just dropped as well, Alta.
Yeah, so actually, I think I briefly mentioned it at the start, but it's The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales. So it's another game made by the Bravely Default Octopath devs, Team Asano, and it's basically just a an action RPG with the same 2D HD style that we've been seeing a lot from them, and it's it looks like a lot of fun. So I haven't played the demo myself, but whenever whenever that development studio makes something, it's like, okay, I'll listen. I'll see what you have to say.
Yeah. Yeah, that one looks like a lot of fun too. I'm definitely got my eye on that. We've talked about it earlier. Like the original announcement for that game came out at the same time that Octopath Traveler 0 was announced. So it's like they do kind of fit nicely together. They it makes sense to kind of talk about them together a little bit. We were also kind of
Ye-
having a discussion before the show started about just how great demos are in general these days, usually, and how much you can really get out of playing demos for some of these games that are coming out now. So Kios, I'm really grateful that you kind of wanted to step up and do this segment
Mhm.
during our episodes to talk about like new demos and new releases and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few friends that are in like the indie game dev scene, and like like it's almost borderline impossible to miss like, oh, Square Enix announced this, Capcom announced this, and don't get me wrong, they're obviously important, and like we all love those games, and you know the companies that we grew up with, but it is, you know, sometimes all it takes is one or two people in the right place at the right time to talk about, oh, this goofy little game that I bought called like, I don't know, like Lethal Company or something like that, that just like two or
Mhm.
three people put together. Um, and it just, you know, it blows up. And, you know, I definitely want to get a lot of indie developers out there if I can, because I think it's so important to have a healthy, small dev, small team structure around to make like those very niche games that we like Fractured
Yeah,
Fairy Tales or Parasite Eve. I don't want to say clones because it's mean, but you know,
sure.
games that are heavily influenced by things that we grew up with or like formative experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like there's always that feeling with indie devs in particular that they are just making the game that they want to make. And I just
Hmm.
think that so many times you end up with such a better final product because you can, you know, they didn't have to sit in a conference committee and like figure out how to do X, Y, or Z. It's just they did what they wanted to do. And if that works for you, boy, you're probably going to really like that a lot too. So,
Well, we would love to do this, but we just don't know how the shareholders will react. You know, they're a little
yeah.
tentative. Like that discussion does not exist when it's four people sweating away on something they're passionate about. If it makes
Yep.
money, cool, but like it's their art. They want to get it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really excited. We'll have a better, I don't want to say better, like we've always tried to highlight indies during the podcast, but like moving to a monthly format and having kind of like a dedicated space to get y'all excited about some new demos and like new releases and things that might be flying under the radar a little bit. I know that Kios and I have talked about that, and
Yeah.
we're thrilled that we can keep doing that as part of our, I dare say, our public service to the RPG community. So all right. And just to kind of as we move to winding things down, I did want to mention one uh you know, I just talked about how important indie games are, and this is just going to be the most jarring segue ever, but there was a Nintendo Direct earlier this week, and a little company called Square Enix announced the new details on the Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy Part 3. So, yeah, let's just get
Oh,
those out there because that's exciting, and I think a lot of people are going to be really curious to hear some of these updates. So first of all, they are getting a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth port out this summer for Switch 2 and Xbox. That'll be releasing on June 3rd. So finally, those of you who do not own a PS5 or a souped up, you know, gaming PC can actually play FF7 Rebirth. So that'll be fun. And then I guess kind of implied in a lot of this was two things. It seems almost certain that part 3 of the Rebirth trilogy is going to be multi-platform at launch. So, you know, basically the
eh,
entire reason I bought a PS5 is like out the window now, but you know what? It's okay. I still have a PS5, so I'll be fine.
I
But
mean, I use it as a nice ledge for all of my like intricate tools.
it does have a good surface to it has a good surface ratio, I agree. But no, I
It
love
has a
my
lot of hidden
PS5.
compartments too.
So it's really got a lot of added utility that we don't talk about as much as we really should. Let's just be honest. So, but no, as a person I'm actually trying to play less games on PC right now. So I actually love my Switch too. But it's nice to have a couple different options for consoles that can play various things. So, I'm really glad that more people will have the option to play this game at launch, because it's kind of not fair that if you didn't have a PS5 you had to wait as long, or maybe you're still waiting to play
Hmm.
Rebirth. So and then it also just it is basically implied as well, new details on part 3 are going to be announced at Summer Game Fest this year. So I don't think we're going to have to wait too much longer to find out some of like the real nitty gritty for, what's the name going to be? What's the release date going to be? Stuff like that. With them bringing this to a conclusion for the remake trilogy. So I am personally very excited about that. As a Final Fantasy, specifically Final Fantasy VII fan, and I've really enjoyed the first 2 games of the remake trilogy. So it'll be exciting to have the full thing finally done. So
Yay.
yay. Any other kind of news or notes either of you have spotted recently that you want to talk about? Just if not, that's fine. But I got to gush about my little corner of the internet that I got excited about. So I want to make sure you two have the opportunity as well.
I think an interesting thing that dropped in the direct this last week also was that another Eden announcement, which is another gacha game that is getting the Octopath Zero treatment. So
oh yeah, I did hear about this.
Makes me think that it's possibly going to be a trend coming forward. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Octopath was kind of like the test ground for Square Enix to do this for other games that they have, like Nier.
Yeah, Nier was the one that immediately came to mind to me too. Like, please release it.
Yeah. As I couldn't agree more, and I know we like in our little discussion we had, but I don't want to say I have a distaste for gacha games. Like there are a few that I play, but like the concept of gacha and live service, like I was kind of like, specifically with Nier, I loved Nier Reincarnation and I thought it was incredibly beautiful. But part of me was also devastated knowing that it wasn't going to be around forever. There's no physical copy of this. So if, like Alta said, if this is like these games are going to be the test bed for how do we transition from like mobile gaming or live service gaming to making these permanent, I'm 100% on board. Like, and that's the thing, like they're already dedicating these resources to developing these games, making these games, maintaining these games, maintaining the servers, updates, bug fixes. You're like 95% of the way there to just making it a permanent fixture. Why not?
Yeah, I'm definitely, well, and also just like, can we stop putting like canonical lore in our mobile games, like our mobile spin-off gacha games? Nier, I'm looking at you specifically.
Oh,
but
you're gonna get into a lore canon discussion with Yoko Taro? Okay.
Oh my gosh,
I'll
just
be
like
here.
whoever
Let me know
thought
how
that
that
was
goes.
yeah. But like, yeah, no, I think that what you brought up specifically is a really good point, which is like, if you want to do this, that's fine, but then like figure out a way to get it out there so that, uh us the non sickos can maybe play a non gotcha version of said game as well. Like that would be a really good development if more places started doing that. So but yeah, Alta, you mentioned something. Kios, anything else from you that you wanted to bring up? Otherwise, I think we will move to wrapping things up for the day.
You mentioned Parasite Eve, and as we were discussing it, I'm a sicko that never turns off their Steam notifications. Do not ask me why. But one of my friends just started playing Wicked Seed. It had a demo, and I was gonna put it into the Wishlist Watch. However, they took it down because it did release. I think it's still on an introductory sale. It is another kind of modern interpretation of like a Parasite Eve gameplay style.
Mm-hmm.
It has that indie jank to it. And like, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. Like, it's not perfectly smooth, but like in a very charming and endearing way.
Yeah.
If you got $20 and you're really craving Parasite Eve, check it out. Yeah, the affectionate indie jank, very much so. Like you can tell it's 10 people in a room that have been working on this for a year. Like They wanted a game. It didn't exist. They cobbled together their skills and their friends and a couple of bucks and put it together.
It's not perfect, but we love it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of vibe. Yeah, I definitely get what you mean. So, all right. Well, this has been fun. It's been good to be back. My like I said earlier on, I'm getting over a cold. My voice gave out a little bit early on, and maybe just I got to reflex my podcasting muscles here a little bit. But this was great. I'm so glad we were able to do this. I know Alta, I kind of cornered you at AGDQ and was like, "Please come onto our podcast. We'd love to have you." And this was honestly like one of you're just like so knowledgeable and passionate about Octopath. Like it really was wonderful to have you here to like kind of pick your brain for this last hour or so. So thank you again.
No, thanks for having me. It's been great fun.
Yeah, for sure. I want to give a couple quick reminders to everybody. Again, reminder, RPG Limit Break submissions are open now through February 15th. I also had a little guide I wanted to read really quick if I can find it again about how to submit, because this was a thing we wanted to make sure everybody understood. So to make your submissions, go to rpglimitbreak.com, make a website account if you don't already have one, and then go to your profile. Once you're in your profile, click on the create edit submissions option. And then from there, it's pretty straightforward how you would submit to any other marathon. But just make sure you actually create an account on the RPG Limit Break website, and then you can submit under your profile. So, and if you want to check out, one of my favorite things to do is just go through the submission list for what's been made public already and just see all the cool stuff that people have submitted as well. Because there's always like so much fun stuff that you can see on there. But like, gosh, somebody speedrunning that game. Like, usually it's Palmer. Like, let's just be honest. But like, but no, like it's so cool just to see all of the RPGs that are out there. There's so much good stuff and so many people that are just really passionate about these games and speedrunning them. So it's always fun just to, like I said, especially as like the submission period gets closer to the end and the pool starts filling up, like just to kind of go through the list and see all the cool stuff that's out there. So I definitely recommend people do that too. Also.
That's the big thing for me, is like scrolling through it and like seeing, oh yeah, I remember I played that game casually. It was an 80-hour game, hour and 15 minutes. No way, I got to see this. I just like the need to know takes over.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, a lot of those games will end up in the marathon, some won't. So you kind of make a mental note of those, like, ooh, you know, still got to check this out, even if it's not going to be in the actual event itself. But yeah, and there are remote submissions as well. So if you can't attend in person, you can still submit to be a remote runner. And there's some special boxes you have to check for that, but it is open to everybody, whether you can be on site or not. I also will mention now that my voice is a little more stable, the other parts of the RPG Limit Break marathon timeline that I wanted to mention, which is volunteer applications will be open on March 8th. And then they will be open for most of March for a couple weeks there, March 8th through the 22nd is what I'm seeing here. Games list should be out around mid-March as well. So if you're thinking about going, but you don't want to go unless your run gets in or like your friend's run gets in that you want to commentate for, make sure that you keep an eye out for the games list in mid-March so that you'll know and you'll still have time to volunteer. Volunteering for events is just such a satisfying thing. I highly recommend it to anybody who has ever watched a speedrunning marathon before and been like, that's really fun to watch, but I kind of wonder like what's actually going on behind the scenes and all of the different things that go into putting the marathon on. And I will tell you, it is not nearly as professional as you might think. So even if you feel like you like don't have anything to offer, or you'll want to like kind of show up and learn as you go, like absolutely, it takes all kinds. There's so many different things that people can do, and everything really helps contribute to the event as a whole. So don't let feelings of or insecurities about like not being a particularly helpful skill set type person keep you from offering to volunteer, because we will find something for you to do, and it'll help, and it'll let you kind of have ownership of the final result of the event as well, which is something that you really just kind of have to experience yourself to sort of feel that that wonderful, warm, fuzzy feeling that you contributed to something so wonderful. So definitely recommend volunteering to everybody as well. Even if you're not a runner, you can still help out. You can still be a part of putting the event on, and it'll be a lot of fun. So, couple other things. Just a reminder again, we are on Apple Music and Spotify as podcast platforms. So search for RPGLB if you want to subscribe or follow us on those. You can also check out the VODs on the RPG Limit Break YouTube channel. You should be subscribing to that as well if you're not already doing so. If you're watching here on Twitch, make sure you get on over to YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Our next episode is not going to be that far off. It is going to be on March 7th, and we are planning to talk about Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. So that's another big new one. Just came out a couple days ago. We're going to find some time to check it out over the course of this next month, and then we'll be back to talk about it in March. And we hope you all will join us then. Until then, I'm going to let my co-host and our awesome guest do their sign-offs here. So Kios, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. I'm Kios. I'm here. I'm queer. My feet are moderately cold. But yeah, you can find me here monthly, except April, apparently. And occasionally you'll also catch me here working with Sid for our random encounters. Otherwise, I am here on Twitch, Kyoslilmonster, and I really only use Blue Sky. But yeah, I am also excited for DQ7. I actually have my hands on that already. So I'm looking forward to that. And if I don't see you until next month, be well, stay safe, stay warm, and tell those you care about you love them.
Yeah. Alta, where can everybody find you outside of this podcast?
You can find me on Twitch and Shalta Biscuit whenever I am actually streaming. It's kind of sporadic whenever I can fit one in there, but it's usually a speedrun or a randomizer of some description. Usually DK64randomizer.com, but I had to sneak it in there. But
as we do.
As we do. But I've been hitting the Octopath speedrunning again recently, so it'll probably be that of some description. You can also find me on Blue Sky.
Great. Yeah. And thanks again for being here for our discussion today. You can find me on Blue Sky as well, moonblazewolf.fastestfurs.com. I'm not streaming as much in 2026, but you can also find me on twitch.tv/moonblazewolf. And obviously, you can find us here monthly talking about new RPGs and shooting the breeze about what all is going on with this great set of games and the community that loves them. So I think with that, we are going to go ahead and head out. I know we are going to be rating High Spirits, who is actually playing said Dragon Quest VII. So we'll be heading on over there. Be sure to come back tomorrow at noon Eastern for the random encounter with East 7, or not East 7. Gosh, I was thinking Final Fantasy 7. East 4 and East versus Trails in the Sky. It's going to be a very East Sunday over here. And I'm glad I know how to say that now, because otherwise, if I just kind of stumbled into that one, I wouldn't have known to say East, and the East people would have been very mad at me. So thank you. And I'm looking, good luck runners on that showcase tomorrow. So from everybody here with the Fresh Files podcast, thank you again for joining us today. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good weekend.